Made in Japan, the business philosophy of lean thinking, Kaizen, and world-class leadership, written and published by Audiobook Institute. The rise of modern Japan stands as one of the most remarkable business transformations in history. In the aftermath of World War II, the nation faced widespread destruction, limited natural resources, and enormous economic uncertainty. Yet within just a few decades, Japan emerged as one of the world's most respected industrial and technological powers. Its companies became global benchmarks for quality, efficiency, innovation, and reliability, not because they possessed greater resources than everyone else, but because they developed better systems, stronger cultures, and a relentless commitment to continuous improvement. Behind the success of organizations such as Toyota, Honda, Sony, Panasonic, Canon, and Nintendo lies a philosophy that values long-term excellence over short-term gains. Rather than chasing dramatic breakthroughs or relying on individual brilliance, Japanese business leaders built organizations capable of improving every single day. Small refinements accumulated into extraordinary competitive advantages. Waste was eliminated, processes were refined, employees were empowered to solve problems, leadership became a responsibility to develop people as much as products. This audiobook explores the timeless principles that shaped Japan's world-class businesses and made concepts like Kaizen and lean thinking influential across every industry. You will discover why continuous improvement creates lasting success, how operational excellence becomes a competitive advantage, why respect for people strengthens organizational performance, and how disciplined leadership builds companies that continue growing for generations instead of quarters. Whether you are an entrepreneur, business owner, executive, manager, student, or lifelong learner, these principles offer practical lessons that extend far beyond manufacturing. They reveal a way of thinking that improves decision-making, leadership, teamwork, productivity, and personal growth. By the end of this audiobook, you will understand that Japan's greatest achievement was never simply creating better products. It was creating better systems, better organizations, and a philosophy of continuous improvement that remains just as powerful today as it was decades ago. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why Japan Changed the Way the World Does Business. The greatest business revolutions rarely begin with abundance, they begin with necessity. When the Second World War ended in 1945, Japan faced one of the most devastating national crises in modern history. Much of its industrial infrastructure had been destroyed. Cities lay in ruins, resources were scarce, the economy was shattered, and confidence in the nation's future had nearly disappeared. By every conventional measure, Japan appeared unlikely to become a global economic leader. Yet within a few decades, the world witnessed something extraordinary. Japanese automobiles became synonymous with reliability. Japanese electronics became symbols of precision and innovation. Japanese manufacturing became the global benchmark for efficiency and quality. Companies such as Toyota, Honda, Sony, Panasonic, Canon, and Nintendo earned worldwide respect, not because they possessed greater natural resources or larger financial advantages, but because they developed a fundamentally different way of thinking about business. Japan changed the way the world does business, and its greatest competitive advantage was never technology alone, it was philosophy. Many nations compete through resources, some compete through lower costs, others compete through aggressive marketing or rapid expansion. Japan chose a different path. Instead of asking, "How can we become bigger?" Japanese business leaders asked a more important question. How can we become better every single day? That single question transformed industries. Rather than searching for dramatic breakthroughs, Japanese companies embraced the belief that thousands of small improvements could produce extraordinary results over time. Excellence was not viewed as an occasional achievement, but as a daily responsibility shared by everyone in the organization. This philosophy became the foundation of modern Japanese management. It shifted attention away from short-term victories and toward long-term capability. Instead of celebrating isolated successes, companies focused on building systems that could consistently produce excellent results. This way of thinking challenged many traditional assumptions about business. In many organizations around the world, success was often attributed to brilliant executives, gifted innovators, or bold strategic decisions. Japanese companies certainly valued leadership and innovation, but they believed sustainable success depended on something even more powerful: a well-designed system. When systems improve, people perform better. When processes improve, quality improves. When quality improves, customer trust grows. And when trust grows consistently over many years, extraordinary businesses emerge. This shift in thinking explains why Japan became the birthplace of concepts that would later influence organizations across every continent: continuous improvement, waste elimination, respect for people, operational excellence, long-term thinking. These ideas did not emerge as isolated management techniques. They formed an interconnected philosophy that guided every decision, from the factory floor to the executive boardroom. One of the most important lessons Japan offered the business world was that excellence is not created by working harder indefinitely. It is created by removing the obstacles that prevent people from doing their best work. Every unnecessary process, every wasted movement, every recurring mistake, every communication failure, every delay, each represented an opportunity for improvement. Rather than accepting inefficiency as inevitable, Japanese organizations treated it as a problem waiting to be solved. This mindset transformed ordinary workplaces into learning organizations. Employees were not expected merely to perform assigned tasks. They were encouraged to observe, question, improve, and contribute ideas. Improvement became everyone's responsibility. The factory worker, the engineer, the supervisor, and the executive all shared ownership of making the organization better than it had been yesterday. That cultural shift became one of Japan's greatest strengths. Equally important was patience. Modern business often celebrates speed, faster growth, faster profits, faster expansion. Japanese companies demonstrated that lasting success often requires a different pace. They invested patiently in quality. They developed employees over many years. They strengthened supplier relationships instead of constantly replacing them. They made decisions based not only on quarterly results, but on how those decisions would affect the organization years into the future. This long-term perspective created remarkable resilience. When challenges arose, strong systems allowed companies to adapt without abandoning their principles. Another defining characteristic of Japanese business philosophy was humility. Instead of assuming that success meant perfection, leading organizations believed there was always room for improvement. No process was considered beyond refinement. No product was viewed as flawless. No leader believed learning had ended. This humility encouraged curiosity rather than complacency. Success became a reason to improve further, not a reason to stop improving. That mindset continues to distinguish world-class organizations today. The influence of Japanese management eventually spread far beyond Japan itself. Manufacturers, hospitals, technology companies, airlines, retailers, financial institutions, and even governments began studying Japanese methods. Business schools introduced courses on lean thinking. Executives traveled across the world to observe Japanese production systems. Organizations discovered that these principles were not limited to manufacturing. Any organization that sought higher quality, greater efficiency, stronger teamwork, and continuous improvement could benefit from the same philosophy. The lessons proved universal because they addressed human behavior as much as business operations. They taught people to think systematically rather than react impulsively, to solve root causes instead of temporary symptoms, to improve processes instead of assigning blame, to build cultures where learning never stopped. These principles remain just as relevant in today's rapidly changing world. Technology has transformed industries. Artificial intelligence is reshaping business. Markets evolve faster than ever before. Yet the organizations that continue succeeding over decades still share many of the same qualities that made Japan exceptional. They build systems instead of relying on heroes. They improve continuously instead of waiting for crises. They develop people instead of merely managing them. They value long-term trust over short-term advantage. Above all, they understand that sustainable success is never accidental. It is deliberately designed. As this audiobook unfolds, you will discover that the true legacy of Japanese business extends far beyond factories and production lines. It offers a timeless philosophy for leadership, decision-making, innovation, teamwork, and personal growth. Because the greatest lesson Japan gave the world was not simply how to build better companies, it was how to build organizations that never stop becoming better. Chapter 2: Kaizen, the power of continuous improvement. History often celebrates dramatic breakthroughs, a revolutionary invention, a billion-dollar business, a record-breaking product launch, an overnight success. These moments capture headlines because they appear extraordinary. What history rarely shows are the thousands of small improvements that quietly made those breakthroughs possible. Behind nearly every enduring success lies a simple but powerful principle. Progress is built one improvement at a time. This principle sits at the heart of Japanese business philosophy and is known as Kaizen. The word combines two Japanese concepts, Kai, meaning change, and Zen, meaning good or better. Together, they represent one of the most influential management philosophies ever developed: continuous improvement, not occasional improvement, not improvement only during times of crisis, but small, consistent improvements made every single day. At first glance, Kaizen appears almost too simple. How could tiny changes compete with bold innovation? How could improving by just a little each day outperform dramatic transformations? The answer lies in understanding how lasting success is actually created. Large improvements are difficult. They require significant investment, major organizational change, and considerable risk. Small improvements are different. They are achievable. They are repeatable. Most importantly, they compound. One small improvement may seem insignificant. Improve a process by 1%. Reduce unnecessary movement by a few seconds. Simplify one workflow. Prevent one recurring mistake. Individually, these changes appear almost invisible, but when hundreds or even thousands of these improvements accumulate over months and years, they transform entire organizations. That is the quiet power of Kaizen. Rather than asking, how can we completely redesign everything? Kaizen asks, what can we improve today? This question changes the culture of an organization. Instead of waiting for senior executives to create innovation, every employee becomes responsible for finding opportunities to improve. The factory worker notices wasted movement. The engineer identifies unnecessary complexity. The supervisor simplifies communication. The manager improves scheduling. The executive strengthens decision-making. Everyone contributes. Improvement becomes part of everyday work rather than an occasional project. This mindset creates something far more valuable than isolated innovation. It creates an organization that never stops learning. One of Kaizen's greatest strengths is that it removes fear from improvement. Large organizational changes often create resistance because they feel risky. People worry about failure. They fear disruption. They hesitate to experiment. Small improvements feel different. They are easier to test, easier to evaluate, easier to adjust. If one idea does not work, another can be tried tomorrow. Progress becomes continuous rather than dependent upon perfect solutions. This encourages curiosity instead of hesitation. Learning replaces fear. The philosophy also changes the role of leadership. In many organizations, leaders are expected to have all the answers. Kaizen rejects this assumption. Instead, leaders create environments where better answers can emerge from everyone. Their responsibility is not simply directing employees. It is developing systems that encourage observation, experimentation, and improvement. The organization becomes stronger because intelligence is distributed rather than concentrated. Every person becomes both a contributor and a learner. Another remarkable feature of Kaizen is its patience. Modern business often rewards immediate results. Companies pursue rapid expansion. Quarterly targets dominate strategic conversations. Short-term performance frequently receives greater attention than long-term capability. Kaizen encourages a different perspective. Its purpose is not to create spectacular improvements overnight. Its purpose is to build an organization that becomes stronger every day. When continuous improvement continues for years, remarkable performance becomes almost inevitable. This philosophy requires discipline because the rewards are rarely immediate. But over time, those small improvements become almost impossible for competitors to match. Perhaps the greatest misconception about Kaizen is that it discourages innovation. The opposite is true. Continuous improvement creates the foundation that makes meaningful innovation possible. Organizations that constantly refine their processes understand their systems deeply. Because they observe every detail, they recognize opportunities that others overlook. Innovation becomes more effective because it grows from understanding rather than guesswork. The world's greatest breakthroughs often emerge from environments where continuous improvement already exists. A powerful example can be seen across many Japanese companies. Rather than waiting for revolutionary discoveries, they built cultures where employees were encouraged to identify small opportunities for improvement every day. Thousands of minor refinements gradually improved quality, reduced costs, increased safety, shortened production times, and strengthened customer satisfaction. Competitors often searched for one dramatic advantage. Japanese organizations quietly created thousands. Over time, those countless improvements became a competitive advantage that proved remarkably difficult to imitate. The lesson extends far beyond manufacturing. Kaizen applies equally to leadership, education, healthcare, entrepreneurship, and personal development. A leader can improve one conversation, a teacher can improve one lesson, an entrepreneur can improve one customer experience, a student can improve one study habit, a family can improve one daily routine. The principle remains unchanged. Small improvements consistently repeated create extraordinary results. This perspective also transforms the way we think about failure. Instead of viewing mistakes as reasons for blame, Kaizen treats them as opportunities for learning. Every problem reveals information. Every challenge exposes a process that can become better. Rather than asking, "Who made the mistake?" Kaizen asks, "What allowed the mistake to happen, and how can we improve the system?" This shift encourages openness, collaboration, and continuous learning. People stop hiding problems and start solving them. That cultural difference is one of the reasons Japanese organizations became globally respected for quality and operational excellence. As you reflect on your own work and life, consider where Kaizen can begin today. Do not search for a complete transformation. Search for one meaningful improvement, one better habit, one clearer process, one stronger conversation, one unnecessary step removed. Tomorrow, improve something else. Then repeat the process again. Over weeks, months, and years, those seemingly insignificant actions will create results that dramatic bursts of effort rarely achieve. The greatest lesson of Kaizen is beautifully simple. Extraordinary success is rarely created through extraordinary moments. It is created through ordinary improvements repeated with extraordinary consistency. Chapter 3. Lean Thinking. Eliminate waste. Create value. Imagine two companies producing the same product. Both employ talented people. Both possess modern technology. Both invest significant amounts of money. Yet one consistently delivers higher quality, lower costs, faster delivery, and greater customer satisfaction. The difference is often not intelligence. It is not effort. It is not even innovation. The difference is waste. Every unnecessary step, every avoidable delay, every defect, every unnecessary movement, every excess inventory. Every poorly designed process quietly steals time, money, and opportunity. The organizations that learn to eliminate these hidden losses create enormous competitive advantages. This simple idea became one of the defining principles of modern Japanese management and eventually influenced businesses around the world. It is known as lean thinking. At its heart, lean thinking asks one powerful question. Does this activity create value for the customer? If the answer is yes, strengthen it. If the answer is no, improve it, simplify it, or eliminate it. This mindset shifts the purpose of business away from simply keeping people busy. Instead, every activity is evaluated according to the value it creates. Lean thinking is not about doing more work. It is about ensuring that the work being done actually matters. One of the most important principles of lean thinking is understanding value. Value is determined by the customer, not by the company. Organizations often become absorbed in internal processes, reports, meetings, and procedures. Some of these activities are necessary, many are not. Customers rarely pay for unnecessary paperwork, excessive waiting, repeated mistakes, or complicated procedures. They pay for products and services that solve problems efficiently and reliably. Lean organizations continually ask whether each process contributes to that outcome. This perspective changes every decision. Another essential principle is identifying waste. In lean thinking, waste refers to anything that consumes resources without creating value. Waste is often invisible because it becomes part of everyday routine. Employees become accustomed to unnecessary approvals. Customers accept long waiting times. Managers tolerate repetitive errors. Organizations continue following outdated procedures simply because they have always existed. Lean thinking challenges these assumptions. It encourages people to observe their work carefully and ask whether every step genuinely deserves to remain. By removing unnecessary activities, organizations free their people to focus on meaningful work. Waste appears in many forms: waiting for approvals, producing more than customers need, correcting avoidable defects, transporting materials unnecessarily, searching for misplaced information, holding unnecessary meetings, performing tasks that add complexity without improving results. Each may appear small on its own. Together, they consume enormous amounts of time and energy. The remarkable insight of lean thinking is that improving performance often requires removing work rather than adding more. This naturally leads to the importance of flow. Flow means allowing work to move smoothly from one stage to the next with as few interruptions as possible. When unnecessary obstacles disappear, quality improves, costs decline, and customers receive better service more quickly. Imagine a river When rocks, debris and obstacles block its path, the water slows and turbulence increases. Remove the obstacles and the river flows naturally. Organizations operate in much the same way. Many productivity problems are not caused by people working too slowly. They are caused by systems filled with unnecessary friction. Lean thinking focuses on removing those barriers. Another defining feature of lean organizations is their commitment to solving the root cause of problems. Many companies repeatedly fix symptoms while ignoring the underlying issue. A defect appears. The product is repaired. A complaint is received. An apology is issued. A deadline is missed. Extra hours are scheduled. These responses address immediate concerns, but rarely prevent the problem from returning. Lean thinking asks a deeper question. Why did this happen in the first place? Each answer leads to another question until the true source of the problem becomes clear. When the root cause is eliminated, the same mistake becomes far less likely to occur again. Improvement becomes permanent instead of temporary. Lean thinking also changes the relationship between efficiency and quality. Many people assume these goals compete with one another. They believe producing faster inevitably reduces quality. Japanese organizations demonstrated the opposite. When waste is removed, people spend less time correcting mistakes, searching for information, repeating tasks, or waiting unnecessarily. The time saved can be invested in improving quality. Efficiency and excellence become partners rather than competitors. Customers receive better products faster, while organizations use fewer resources to produce them. This creates value for everyone involved. One of the clearest examples of lean thinking can be found in companies that transformed manufacturing by constantly eliminating waste from their production systems. Rather than accepting delays, unnecessary movement, excessive inventory, or recurring defects as unavoidable, they examined every process in detail. Small improvements were introduced continuously. Production became smoother, quality improved, delivery became faster, costs declined. Most importantly, customers received greater value. Competitors often attempted to work harder. Lean organizations learned to work smarter by designing better systems. The influence of this philosophy eventually extended far beyond manufacturing. Hospitals reduced patient waiting times. Airlines improved operational efficiency. Technology companies streamlined software development. Retail businesses simplified supply chains. Service organizations redesigned customer experiences. The industries changed, but the principle remained the same. Remove what does not create value. Strengthen what does. As you consider your own work, ask yourself a simple question. What activities consume your time without producing meaningful results? Perhaps it is an unnecessary meeting, a repetitive process, a habit of checking email too frequently, an overly complicated workflow, an outdated routine that continues simply because it always has. Every unnecessary activity you remove creates more space for meaningful work. Lean thinking teaches that improvement is not always about adding something new. Very often, it is about having the wisdom to remove what no longer serves a purpose. When waste disappears, value becomes clearer. When value becomes clearer, customers benefit. And when organizations consistently create greater value than their competitors, lasting success naturally follows. That is the enduring power of lean thinking, a philosophy that proves excellence is achieved not by doing more, but by ensuring that everything you do truly matters. Chapter 4. Toyota, the company that changed manufacturing forever. Few companies have influenced modern business as profoundly as Toyota. While many organizations are remembered for creating successful products, Toyota transformed something far more fundamental. It changed the way organizations think about work itself. Today, manufacturers, technology firms, hospitals, airlines, retailers, and even governments study principles that originated within Toyota's factories. Universities teach them. Business leaders travel across the world to understand them. Consultants build entire careers around them. Yet Toyota's greatest innovation was never a machine or a vehicle. It was a management philosophy. In the years following the Second World War, Toyota faced enormous disadvantages. Unlike many Western manufacturers, it lacked vast financial resources, large domestic markets, and abundant raw materials. Competing through sheer size was impossible. Toyota needed a different strategy. Instead of producing more than everyone else, it decided to produce better. Instead of relying on scale alone, it relied on intelligence. Instead of accepting inefficiency as the cost of manufacturing, it challenged every assumption about how work should be performed. From this necessity emerged what would become known as the Toyota Production System, often abbreviated as TPS. More than a production method, TPS became an operating philosophy built around one central objective: create maximum value for the customer while using the minimum necessary resources. Everything within the organization was measured against this objective. Every process, every movement, every decision, every investment. If something failed to create value, it deserved careful examination. This relentless discipline became the foundation of Toyota's extraordinary success. One of the defining principles of the Toyota production system is the elimination of waste. Toyota recognized that waste appears in countless forms: producing products before customers need them, holding excessive inventory, waiting for materials, transporting components unnecessarily, repairing defects, performing unnecessary movements, overcomplicating simple processes. Each represents resources consumed without creating additional value. Rather than accepting these inefficiencies, Toyota viewed them as opportunities for improvement. The company developed a culture where employees actively searched for waste every day. Small inefficiencies that many organizations ignored became priorities for improvement. Over time, these countless refinements produced remarkable gains in quality, speed, and cost efficiency. Another revolutionary idea was producing only what customers actually required. Traditional manufacturing often emphasized large production runs to maximize machine utilization. Factories produced vast quantities of inventory, hoping future demand would justify today's production. Toyota challenged this assumption. Instead, it introduced what became known as just-in-time production. The principle was elegantly simple: produce the right item, in the right quantity, at the right time, nothing more, nothing less. This approach dramatically reduced unnecessary inventory while allowing production to respond more effectively to changing customer demand. Inventory, once considered a sign of strength, became something to minimize rather than celebrate. Less inventory meant fewer hidden problems. Defects became visible sooner. Process failures became easier to identify. Quality improved because issues could no longer remain concealed beneath excess stock. Equally transformative was Toyota's belief that quality should be built into the process rather than inspected afterwards. Many manufacturers relied heavily on quality inspectors at the end of production. Defective products were identified only after valuable time and resources had already been invested. Toyota adopted a fundamentally different philosophy. Every employee became responsible for quality. If a problem appeared during production, workers were encouraged, even expected, to stop the process immediately. At first glance, stopping production may appear inefficient. In reality, allowing defects to continue through the system creates far greater costs. By solving problems immediately, Toyota prevented small issues from becoming expensive failures. Quality became everyone's responsibility rather than the responsibility of a separate department. This philosophy required extraordinary trust. Employees were not treated merely as operators following instructions. They became active participants in improving the organization. One of Toyota's greatest competitive advantages has always been its respect for people. While observers often focus on machines and automation, Toyota understood that lasting improvement depends upon human intelligence. Employees were encouraged to identify problems, suggest improvements, experiment responsibly, share knowledge, learn continuously. The people closest to the work often understood the processes better than anyone else. Toyota built systems that listened to them. This created an environment where innovation occurred every day, rather than only during executive planning sessions. Leadership within Toyota also differed significantly from conventional management. Many organizations expect managers to supervise work from a distance. Toyota expected leaders to understand the work directly. Managers regularly visited the place where value was actually being created. They observed processes firsthand. They asked questions instead of making assumptions. They solved problems alongside employees rather than issuing instructions from offices far removed from daily operations. This practice reinforced a powerful lesson. Good decisions require direct understanding. Leaders who remain connected to reality build stronger organizations than those who manage entirely through reports and statistics. Another defining characteristic of the Toyota production system is standardization. At first, standardized work may sound restrictive. Many assume creativity requires complete freedom. Toyota demonstrated the opposite. When best practices become standard, everyone begins from a strong foundation. Consistency reduces variation. Variation creates defects. Once a reliable standard exists, improvements become easier to measure because organizations know exactly what has changed. Standardization, therefore, does not eliminate innovation. It creates the stability that allows innovation to flourish responsibly. Continuous improvement then builds upon those standards. This relationship between discipline and innovation explains why Toyota rarely pursued dramatic organizational overhauls. Instead, thousands of incremental improvements accumulated year after year. Every solved problem strengthened the entire system. Every refinement made future improvements easier. The organization became increasingly capable of learning. That capability proved more valuable than any individual innovation. Eventually, companies across the world recognized the extraordinary effectiveness of Toyota's methods. Manufacturers adopted lean principles. Healthcare systems redesigned patient care. Software companies streamlined development processes. Logistics firms improved supply chains. Financial institutions reduced operational waste. Although industries differed dramatically, the underlying philosophy remained universal. Understand value, eliminate waste, respect people, solve root causes, improve continuously, develop better systems. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Toyota's success is that its philosophy extends beyond manufacturing. The principles apply equally to leading a team, running a business, managing personal finances, studying for examinations, or improving everyday routines. Every process contains waste. Every system can improve. Every individual has the capacity to learn. Toyota demonstrated that excellence is not achieved through occasional brilliance, but through disciplined thinking applied consistently over long periods. Its factories became famous not because they possessed magical technology, but because they created an organizational culture where learning never stopped. Machines produced vehicles, people improved the machines, systems improved the people. Together, they formed an organization capable of adapting, evolving, and improving generation after generation. That is why Toyota changed manufacturing forever. It proved that sustainable competitive advantage does not come from working harder than everyone else. It comes from building systems that enable ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results every single day. The legacy of the Toyota production system is therefore much greater than the millions of vehicles it has produced. Its true legacy is a philosophy that continues to shape how the world's best organizations think about quality, leadership, efficiency, and continuous improvement. More than half a century after its principles first emerged, they remain as relevant as ever. Because while technology continues to evolve, the pursuit of eliminating waste, creating value, and respecting people will never go out of date. Chapter 5. Respect for people is a competitive advantage. When people think about the success of Japanese companies, they often focus on efficiency. They picture streamlined factories, flawless production lines, and sophisticated technology. Yet beneath every efficient process lies something even more important: people. Machines can increase productivity. Technology can improve precision. Systems can organize work. But none of these can reach their full potential unless the people using them are respected, trusted, and empowered. This is one of the most enduring lessons of Japanese management philosophy. Respect for people is not simply a moral principle. It is a strategic advantage. Many organizations believe competitive advantage comes from superior products, larger budgets, or more advanced technology. Those factors certainly matter. However, they are also easier for competitors to copy. A machine can be purchased, software can be replicated, processes can be studied. A culture built on trust and mutual respect is far more difficult to imitate. That is why many of Japan's most successful organizations invested as much effort in developing people as they did in developing products. Respect begins with a simple belief. Every individual has the ability to contribute to improvement. Regardless of job title, experience, or department, each employee possesses knowledge that can strengthen the organization. The person working closest to a process often understands its weaknesses better than anyone else. When organizations ignore these voices, they lose valuable opportunities for learning. When they encourage them, innovation becomes everyone's responsibility. This philosophy naturally leads to a style of management known today as servant leadership. Traditional leadership often places authority at the center. The leader gives instructions. Employees follow them. Success depends largely on the decisions of a few individuals at the top. Servant leadership reverses this perspective. The leader's primary responsibility is not to control people. It is to help them succeed. Rather than asking, "How can people serve the leader?" servant leadership asks, "How can the leader serve the people?" This does not mean lowering standards or avoiding accountability. It means removing obstacles that prevent others from performing at their best. A servant leader provides clear direction, necessary resources, meaningful coaching, and opportunities for growth. Instead of creating dependence, they develop capability. Their success is measured not by personal recognition, but by the success of the people they lead. Trust forms the foundation of this relationship. Without trust, even the most carefully designed systems begin to fail. Employees become reluctant to share ideas. Problems remain hidden. Mistakes are covered up. Innovation slows because people fear criticism more than they value improvement. Japanese organizations recognize that trust is built through consistency rather than promises. Leaders who listen carefully, keep their commitments, admit their own mistakes, and treat everyone fairly gradually create environments where openness becomes natural. In such cultures, communication becomes faster, collaboration becomes stronger, and decisions improve because information flows honestly throughout the organization. Trust also creates empowerment. Empowerment is often misunderstood as simply giving employees greater freedom. True empowerment is much more demanding. It combines responsibility with authority. People are encouraged to make decisions because they possess the knowledge needed to improve their work. They are trusted to solve problems instead of waiting for constant approval. This speeds decision-making while strengthening individual confidence. When employees believe their judgment is respected, they become more engaged in the organization's success. One of the defining characteristics of world-class organizations is that improvement does not wait for permission. People closest to the work continuously identify better ways of performing it. This is only possible when leaders genuinely believe that intelligence exists throughout the organization rather than only within senior management. Another essential ingredient is psychological safety. Although the term has gained widespread attention in recent years, its underlying principle has long existed within successful Japanese organizations. Psychological safety means people feel secure enough to ask questions, admit uncertainty, report problems, and suggest improvements without fear of humiliation or punishment. This does not eliminate accountability. Instead, it separates learning from blame. Consider two different workplaces. In the first, employees hide mistakes because they fear criticism. Problems grow quietly until they become expensive crises. In the second, people immediately report concerns because they know the organization is committed to solving problems rather than assigning fault. Which organization is more likely to improve? The answer is obvious. Psychological safety accelerates learning because information reaches decision-makers before small issues become major failures. Respect for people also transforms the way organizations respond to mistakes. Many companies instinctively ask, "Who is responsible?" Japanese management philosophy encourages a different question: what allowed this to happen? This subtle change shifts attention from individuals to systems. Rather than searching for someone to blame, organizations search for processes to improve. People remain accountable for their actions, but the primary objective becomes preventing future failures rather than punishing past ones. Over time, this creates a culture where honesty becomes more valuable than self-protection. Employees become partners in improvement instead of merely participants in production. Perhaps the greatest strength of respecting people is its cumulative effect. When individuals feel valued, they invest more effort. When they are trusted, they take greater ownership. When they are empowered, they solve more problems. When they feel psychologically safe, they contribute more ideas. Each of these outcomes strengthens the organization. Together, they create an environment where excellence becomes sustainable rather than accidental. This principle extends far beyond business. Families flourish when members trust one another. Schools improve when students feel safe to ask questions. Communities become stronger when individuals believe their contributions matter. Respect unlocks human potential wherever people work together. Technology will continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence will automate many routine tasks. New tools will reshape industries. Yet one competitive advantage will remain remarkably difficult to duplicate. An organization where people are respected, trusted, empowered, and inspired to improve every day. That is why the world's greatest organizations never view people as costs to be managed. They see them as their most valuable source of learning, innovation, and long-term success. In the end, world-class organizations are not built by extraordinary systems alone. They are built by ordinary people who achieve extraordinary results because someone believed they were capable of more. Chapter 6. Quality is built into the process. Many organizations believe quality is something that can be inspected at the end. A product is manufactured. A service is delivered. A report is completed. Then someone checks whether mistakes have been made. If defects are found, they are corrected before reaching the customer. Although this approach may seem reasonable, it treats quality as a final checkpoint rather than an integral part of the work itself. Japanese business philosophy takes a fundamentally different view. Quality is not something added after the work is finished. It is built into every step of the process. This distinction may appear subtle, but it transforms the way organizations operate. When quality is left until the end, mistakes are often expensive. Time has already been invested, materials have already been consumed, customers may already have been affected. Correcting errors becomes a process of repairing damage rather than preventing it. Building quality into the process changes the objective entirely. Instead of asking, how do we detect defects? The better question becomes, how do we prevent defects from occurring in the first place? This shift from detection to prevention became one of the defining strengths of Japanese manufacturing and later influenced organizations across countless industries. At the heart of this philosophy is the belief that every process should produce the correct result consistently. Achieving this requires more than skilled employees. It requires well-designed systems. People naturally make mistakes. They become tired. They overlook details. They face distractions. A world-class organization does not pretend these realities do not exist. Instead, it designs processes that make errors less likely and easier to detect before they become costly failures. One of the most important tools for achieving this consistency is standardization. Some people mistakenly associate standards with rigidity. They imagine repetitive work that discourages creativity. In reality, effective standards create stability rather than limitation. A standard represents the current best-known method of performing a task. It provides clarity. Everyone understands the expected process. Variation decreases. Confusion is reduced. Training becomes simpler. Performance becomes more predictable. Most importantly, improvement becomes measurable. Without a clear standard, it is impossible to know whether a new method is genuinely better. Standards, therefore, do not prevent innovation. They provide the stable foundation upon which continuous improvement can occur. Every improvement establishes a new standard, which eventually becomes the starting point for future improvements. This cycle of standardization followed by refinement is one of the reasons Japanese organizations achieve remarkable consistency over long periods. Another defining principle is jidoka, a concept often translated as automation with a human touch or built-in quality. Although the term originated in manufacturing, its underlying philosophy applies to every type of organization. Jidoka means that when an abnormality occurs, the process should stop so the problem can be understood and corrected immediately. This idea challenged traditional thinking. Many organizations believed production should continue at all costs. Stopping work appeared inefficient. Toyota and other Japanese companies recognized a deeper truth. Allowing defects to continue moving through the system is far more expensive than pausing briefly to solve the problem. Imagine discovering a small crack in the foundation of a building. Ignoring it may save time today. Repairing the damage years later could require rebuilding the entire structure. The same principle applies to organizational processes. Small problems become major failures when ignored. Jidoka encourages immediate attention. A defect is not hidden. It is investigated. A delay is not accepted. Its cause is examined. The objective is not merely restoring production. It is ensuring the same problem does not occur again. This philosophy requires a culture where reporting problems is encouraged rather than discouraged. Employees must feel confident that identifying an issue demonstrates responsibility rather than failure. When organizations punish people for exposing problems, defects remain hidden. When they reward honesty, learning accelerates. Quality improves because truth reaches decision-makers quickly. Closely connected to Jidoka is the principle of continuous feedback. High-performing organizations never wait until the end of a project to discover what went wrong. Instead, they create frequent opportunities to observe performance, gather information, and adjust accordingly. Feedback becomes part of everyday work rather than an occasional event. A production line provides immediate signals when abnormalities appear. A service organization collects customer responses. A software team reviews each development cycle. A leader regularly checks whether communication remains clear. Small adjustments prevent small problems from becoming major setbacks. Continuous feedback shortens the distance between action and learning. The faster organizations learn, the faster they improve. Importantly, feedback is not limited to identifying mistakes. It also highlights success. Teams discover which practices consistently produce excellent results. Those practices can then become new organizational standards. Learning therefore flows in both directions. Problems reveal opportunities for correction. Success reveals opportunities for replication. Both strengthen quality. This approach also changes the relationship between speed and excellence. Many organizations believe producing quickly inevitably reduces quality. Japanese management demonstrates the opposite. Poor quality creates delays. Mistakes require rework. Defects generate customer complaints. Confusion leads to wasted effort. When quality improves, these hidden costs disappear. Processes become smoother because people spend less time correcting preventable errors. Speed becomes the natural consequence of doing the work correctly the first time. This principle extends well beyond manufacturing. A teacher who prepares lessons carefully reduces classroom confusion. A surgeon who follows rigorous procedures improves patient safety. A software developer who writes clean code spends less time fixing future bugs. A business leader who communicates clearly prevents costly misunderstandings. In every profession, building quality into the process creates stronger long-term results than relying on inspection after the fact. Perhaps the most important lesson is that quality is never the responsibility of a single department. It belongs to everyone. Leaders create systems that support excellence. Managers reinforce standards. Teams collaborate to improve processes. Individuals take pride in performing their work thoughtfully and consistently. When every person shares responsibility for quality, excellence becomes part of the organizational culture rather than an isolated objective. As you reflect on your own work, consider where quality truly begins. Is it something you check at the end? Or is it something you intentionally build into every decision, every habit, and every process? The answer determines whether improvement remains reactive or becomes continuous. The world's most respected organizations understand that exceptional quality is rarely achieved through extraordinary inspections. It is achieved through ordinary processes designed so well that excellence becomes the natural outcome. That is the enduring lesson of Japanese management. Quality is not inspected into a product, a service, or a business. It is designed into the process from the very beginning. Chapter 7. Long-term thinking beats short-term profit. In modern business, speed is often celebrated as the ultimate competitive advantage. Companies race to increase quarterly earnings. Investors demand immediate returns. Executives are rewarded for delivering short-term results. Markets react instantly to every financial report, product launch, and strategic announcement. In such an environment, it is easy to believe that success belongs to those who move the fastest. Japanese business philosophy offers a different perspective. It asks a more important question, not how can we maximize this quarter, but how can we build an organization that continues to succeed decades from now? This difference in thinking has shaped many of Japan's most respected companies. Rather than chasing temporary victories, they focused on creating businesses capable of enduring economic cycles, technological change, and shifting customer expectations. Their objective was not simply to become successful, it was to remain successful. This philosophy begins with strategic patience. Patience is often misunderstood as hesitation or a lack of ambition. In reality, strategic patience is highly disciplined. It means resisting the temptation to sacrifice the future for immediate rewards. A company practicing strategic patience still acts decisively, but every decision is evaluated according to its long-term consequences. Will this strengthen customer trust? Will it improve the organization's capabilities? Will it make the business more resilient 5, 10, or 20 years from now? If the answer is no, short-term profit alone is rarely considered sufficient justification. This mindset encourages leaders to think like builders rather than traders. A builder understands that a strong foundation takes time. Quality materials are chosen carefully. Every stage of construction supports the next. Shortcuts may accelerate today's progress, but they often create tomorrow's weaknesses. Successful organizations are built in much the same way. Every investment in people, systems, culture, and quality strengthens the foundation for future growth. Another defining characteristic of Japanese management is its commitment to sustainable growth. Many businesses pursue expansion at almost any cost. They grow rapidly by overextending resources, lowering standards, or making promises they cannot consistently fulfill. Such growth may appear impressive for a time, but it often creates hidden instability. Japanese organizations generally preferred a steadier approach. Growth was welcomed, but only when the organization possessed the systems, people, and operational discipline necessary to support it. Expansion without capability was viewed as a risk rather than an achievement. This philosophy recognizes that healthy growth resembles the development of a tree. Strong roots form before branches spread widely. Without those roots, rapid growth becomes fragile. Corporate vision also plays a central role in long-term thinking. Many organizations define success primarily through financial targets: revenue, market share, profit margins. While these measures remain important, they are outcomes rather than purposes. Japanese companies often built their strategies around broader missions, creating value for customers, contributing to society, developing employees, advancing technology, improving quality of life. Financial success was expected to follow naturally when these responsibilities were fulfilled consistently. A compelling vision provides stability during uncertain times. Economic conditions change, industries evolve, competitors emerge, technology advances. Without a clear purpose, organizations may constantly change direction in pursuit of temporary opportunities. A strong corporate vision acts like a compass. The route may change, but the destination remains clear. This consistency builds trust among employees, customers, suppliers, and investors alike. Long-term thinking also transforms the way organizations approach investment. Many people associate investment solely with money. Japanese management adopts a much broader perspective, investing in employee development, investing in customer relationships, investing in operational excellence, investing in research, investing in reputation. These investments often produce little immediate financial return. Their value emerges gradually over many years. Training an employee thoroughly requires time and resources. Building trust with customers demands consistent performance. Strengthening organizational culture cannot be completed within a single financial year. Yet these long-term investments frequently become the greatest sources of competitive advantage because they are difficult for competitors to replicate quickly. This philosophy also influences decision-making during difficult periods. Economic downturns place enormous pressure on organizations to reduce costs aggressively. While financial discipline remains essential, Japanese companies have often demonstrated remarkable restraint in protecting the capabilities that create future success. Rather than viewing employees solely as expenses, they are seen as long-term assets. Rather than abandoning quality initiatives, organizations recognize that compromising standards may damage customer trust for years to come. The immediate savings gained through short-term decisions can carry hidden long-term costs. Perhaps nowhere is long-term thinking more evident than in the relationship between organizations and their customers. Businesses focused exclusively on immediate profit may seek to maximize each individual transaction. Businesses guided by long-term thinking seek to maximize the lifetime value of the relationship. This changes behavior significantly. Promises are made carefully. Quality remains consistent. Problems are resolved honestly. Trust becomes more valuable than a single sale. Over time, loyal customers become one of the strongest drivers of sustainable growth. Long-term thinking also encourages resilience. Not every investment succeeds. Markets occasionally decline. Unexpected disruptions occur. Organizations with a long-term perspective understand that temporary setbacks do not necessarily require abandoning sound principles. Instead of reacting emotionally to short-term fluctuations, they evaluate challenges within the context of a much longer journey. This steadiness enables wiser decisions during periods when competitors may be driven by fear or impatience. The principles of long-term thinking extend beyond corporations. Individuals also face constant choices between immediate gratification and lasting achievement, learning a new skill, saving money, improving health, building meaningful relationships, developing expertise. None of these produce instant rewards. All require patience. Yet the greatest personal and professional successes almost always emerge from consistent investments made long before the results become visible. As you reflect on your own work and ambitions, consider which decisions are shaped primarily by today's pressures and which are guided by tomorrow's possibilities. Are you optimizing for the next week, or are you building something that will remain valuable years from now? The answer defines the difference between temporary success and enduring excellence. Japanese business philosophy reminds us that extraordinary organizations are not measured by how quickly they generate profit. They are measured by how consistently they create value across generations. Quarterly results may influence headlines, but long-term thinking shapes legacies. And in business, as in life, the organizations that think furthest ahead are often the ones that travel the furthest. Chapter 8. Build systems that create excellence. When extraordinary success appears from the outside, it is often attributed to extraordinary people, a visionary leader, a gifted engineer, an exceptional salesperson, a brilliant entrepreneur. While talent undoubtedly matters, Japanese business philosophy teaches a different lesson. Exceptional organizations are rarely built upon exceptional individuals alone. They are built upon exceptional systems. People come and go. Leaders retire. Markets change. Technology evolves. If success depends entirely on a handful of talented individuals, an organization remains fragile. When those people leave, performance often declines. World-class organizations avoid this dependence. They create systems that allow ordinary people to achieve consistently extraordinary results. This is the essence of systems thinking. Systems thinking shifts attention away from isolated events and towards the interconnected processes that produce them. When a problem occurs, many organizations immediately search for someone to blame. Who made the mistake? Who missed the deadline? Who failed to notice the defect? Systems thinking asks a more productive question. What within the system allowed this outcome to occur? This simple change transforms the entire approach to improvement. Instead of correcting individuals repeatedly, organizations improve the conditions in which people work. As the system improves, performance improves naturally. Imagine two football teams. One relies entirely on a single world-class player. The other has clear strategies, disciplined training, effective communication, and coordinated teamwork. Even if the first team occasionally produces moments of brilliance, the second is far more likely to perform consistently over an entire season. Business operates in much the same way. Reliable systems outperform isolated talent over the long term. One of the most important elements of systems thinking is standard work. At first, the phrase may sound restrictive. Some people assume standards eliminate creativity. In reality, standard work creates consistency. It defines the current best-known method for completing a task safely, efficiently, and with high quality. Everyone begins from the same foundation. This reduces unnecessary variation. Training becomes easier. Errors become easier to identify. Customers receive a more consistent experience. Most importantly, improvement becomes measurable. Without a standard, every individual performs the task differently. When performance varies constantly, organizations cannot determine whether changes genuinely improve results. Standard work provides stability. It creates a reliable baseline from which better methods can emerge. Rather than limiting innovation, standards enable it. Whenever a superior method is discovered, it becomes the new standard. The cycle then begins again. This continuous refinement allows organizations to improve steadily without creating confusion. Another defining feature of world-class systems is process optimization. Many organizations attempt to improve results simply by asking people to work harder. Employees stay later, managers increase supervision, teams operate under greater pressure. Although these approaches may produce temporary gains, they rarely solve underlying problems. Japanese management philosophy recognizes that sustainable improvement comes from improving processes rather than increasing effort alone. Consider a poorly designed workflow. Employees constantly wait for approvals. Information is duplicated across multiple systems. Meetings delay decisions. Errors require repeated corrections. Working harder within such a process merely increases frustration. Improving the process removes unnecessary obstacles. The same people can achieve better outcomes with less effort because the system supports success instead of resisting it. Process optimization requires observation. Leaders must understand how work actually happens rather than how they assume it happens. The smallest details often reveal the greatest opportunities. An unnecessary approval, a confusing instruction, an outdated procedure, a recurring communication failure. Individually, these inefficiencies appear insignificant. Collectively, they consume enormous amounts of time, money, and energy. Optimizing the process means removing these hidden barriers one by one until work flows naturally. Another essential characteristic of Japanese organizations is their commitment to continuous learning. No system is considered perfect. No process is regarded as complete. Every standard represents today's best understanding rather than tomorrow's final answer. This mindset encourages humility. Success never becomes an excuse for complacency. Instead, every achievement becomes the starting point for the next improvement. Continuous learning requires curiosity. Employees are encouraged to ask questions. Leaders seek feedback rather than assuming they already possess every answer. Teams analyze successes as carefully as failures. Knowledge is shared instead of protected. Learning becomes embedded within everyday work rather than reserved for occasional training programs. Perhaps the greatest strength of this approach is resilience. Organizations built around individuals often struggle when circumstances change. Systems built around learning adapt continuously. New technology is integrated thoughtfully. Customer expectations are studied carefully. Processes evolve without abandoning core principles. Because improvement is already part of the culture, change becomes far less disruptive. The organization develops the ability not merely to survive change, but to benefit from it. This philosophy extends well beyond business. A successful athlete depends on consistent training systems rather than occasional motivation. An accomplished musician relies on disciplined practice routines. A skilled surgeon follows carefully refined procedures. A productive student develops reliable study habits. In every field, systems consistently outperform willpower alone. Motivation rises and falls. Strong systems continue working regardless. As you reflect on your own work, ask yourself an important question. Are your results driven primarily by personal effort, or are they supported by effective systems? If success requires constant struggle, the system probably needs improvement. If excellence can be repeated consistently by different people under different circumstances, the system is likely becoming stronger. That is the enduring wisdom of Japanese management. The world's best organizations do not depend upon extraordinary heroes rescuing ordinary systems. They build extraordinary systems that allow ordinary people to produce extraordinary outcomes every single day. In the end, excellence is rarely an accident. It is the predictable result of systems designed to learn, improve, and create value continuously. And once those systems are in place, success becomes not an occasional achievement, but an organizational habit. Chapter 9. Leadership that develops leaders. Many people believe leadership is about authority. The leader makes decisions. The team follows instructions. Results are measured by how effectively people carry out those decisions. This model has existed for generations, and in some situations it can produce short-term success. Yet the world's most enduring organizations reveal a different truth. Great leaders do not create followers. They create more leaders. This principle has long been central to Japanese business philosophy. Companies that survive for decades or even centuries understand that no individual, however talented, can remain at the center of every important decision forever. Leaders retire, markets evolve, technology changes, new challenges emerge. If an organization depends entirely on one exceptional individual, its future is always uncertain. The strongest organizations therefore invest as much energy in developing future leaders as they do in achieving today's results. Leadership becomes a responsibility to strengthen the organization beyond one's own tenure. This begins with coaching. Many managers see their role as solving problems for their teams. Whenever a challenge appears, they provide the answer. Although this may seem efficient, it often creates dependence. Employees become accustomed to waiting for direction instead of developing their own judgment. Coaching takes a different approach. Rather than immediately providing solutions, effective leaders ask thoughtful questions. What do you think caused the problem? What options have you considered? What evidence supports your conclusion? What can we learn from this situation? These questions encourage critical thinking. People become active participants in solving problems rather than passive recipients of instructions. Over time, confidence grows alongside competence. The organization becomes stronger because knowledge is distributed instead of concentrated. Closely connected to coaching is mentorship. While coaching often focuses on improving current performance, mentorship is concerned with long-term development. A mentor shares experience, perspective, and wisdom that helps another person grow beyond immediate responsibilities. Japanese organizations have long recognized that knowledge should never remain trapped within a single generation of leaders. Experienced employees guide newer colleagues. Technical expertise is passed forward. Leadership skills are cultivated patiently over many years. The objective is not simply transferring information, it is shaping judgment. Books can teach procedures, experience teaches perspective. Mentorship bridges the distance between the two. One of the defining characteristics of Japanese leadership is humility. In many cultures, leadership is associated with status and personal recognition. Success is often measured by visibility. Japanese management philosophy offers a quieter form of leadership. The leader does not seek attention. The work receives the attention. The leader does not assume they possess every answer. Instead, they remain curious enough to keep learning. Humility allows leaders to admit mistakes without losing credibility. It enables them to listen carefully to people whose experience differs from their own. It encourages collaboration rather than ego. Perhaps most importantly, humility creates an environment where learning never stops. The moment leaders believe they have nothing left to learn, organizational improvement begins to slow. Humility keeps improvement alive. Another essential responsibility of leadership is building organizational culture. Culture is often described as the way we do things here. It shapes behavior long before written policies are consulted. Employees observe how leaders respond under pressure. They notice which behaviors receive recognition. They watch how mistakes are handled. They learn what truly matters, not from slogans displayed on office walls, but from everyday decisions. Every action taken by a leader strengthens or weakens organizational culture. A leader who listens respectfully encourages open communication. A leader who accepts responsibility encourages accountability. A leader who remains calm during difficulty creates stability. A leader who continuously learns inspires others to do the same. Culture grows through consistent behavior repeated over time. It cannot be delegated, it must be demonstrated. This explains why Japanese organizations often place great emphasis on leading by example. Employees are more influenced by what leaders do than by what they say. When leaders follow organizational standards themselves, others are more likely to respect those standards. When leaders participate in improvement efforts rather than merely demanding them, trust grows naturally. Credibility comes from alignment between words and actions. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of leadership development is succession. Many organizations spend enormous effort recruiting talented leaders from outside while investing relatively little in developing talent from within. Japanese companies have traditionally taken a longer view. Leadership is cultivated continuously. Potential is recognized early. Responsibilities increase gradually. Experience accumulates over time. Future leaders gain a deep understanding of the organization's values, systems, and culture long before they assume senior positions. This creates continuity. When leadership changes, the organization continues progressing because its philosophy remains intact. The goal is not simply replacing one leader with another. It is preserving and strengthening the culture that made success possible in the first place. These principles extend beyond business. Parents coach children to become independent adults. Teachers mentor students who will one day educate others. Experienced professionals guide those entering their field. Communities remain strong because knowledge is shared rather than protected. Leadership is ultimately an act of multiplication. Its greatest success is measured not by how indispensable one person becomes, but by how capable everyone else grows. As you consider your own approach to leadership, ask yourself a simple question. Are you solving today's problems, or are you developing people who will solve tomorrow's? The distinction is profound. One creates temporary progress, the other creates lasting capability. Japanese business philosophy reminds us that organizations achieve true greatness when leadership is viewed not as a position of authority, but as a commitment to developing others. Because the strongest leaders are rarely those who accomplish the most themselves. They are those who inspire, teach, and prepare countless others to achieve even greater things. That is how organizations outlast individuals. That is how cultures endure. And that is how leadership becomes a legacy rather than merely a title. Chapter 10. Think like a world-class problem solver. Every organization faces problems. Projects fall behind schedule. Customers complain, costs increase, deadlines are missed, mistakes occur. The difference between average organizations and world-class organizations is not the absence of problems, it is the way they respond to them. Many people treat problems as interruptions. Something goes wrong, they apply the quickest available solution. Normal operations resume. For a while, everything appears fine, then the same problem returns. The cycle repeats. Time is wasted, resources are consumed, frustration grows. Japanese business philosophy challenges this reactive approach. Instead of asking, how do we fix today's problem, it asks, why did this problem occur in the first place? That single question transforms problem solving from temporary repair into lasting improvement. World-class problem solvers understand that visible problems are often symptoms. The true cause usually lies beneath the surface. Imagine a tree with unhealthy leaves. Removing the damaged leaves may improve its appearance briefly, but if the roots remain diseased, the problem will soon return. The same principle applies to organizations. Late deliveries may reflect poor planning. Customer complaints may reveal unclear processes. Recurring defects may indicate weaknesses in training or system design. Treating only the symptom leaves the underlying cause untouched. Japanese management therefore places enormous emphasis on root cause analysis. The objective is not simply restoring normal operations, it is ensuring the same problem becomes less likely to happen again. One of the most widely recognized tools for achieving this is the 5 whys. Despite its simplicity, it has influenced organizations around the world. The method begins with a problem. Then one question is asked, why? The answer leads to another why. This continues until the discussion reaches the underlying cause rather than the obvious symptom. Consider a simple example. A customer receives a defective product. Why? Because an assembly error occurred. Why? Because the production instructions were unclear. Why? Because the procedures had not been updated after introducing new equipment. Why? Because responsibility for reviewing documentation was never assigned. The defect itself was not the real problem. The absence of a reliable review process was. Once that root cause is corrected, countless future defects may be prevented. The 5 whys demonstrates an important principle. The first answer is rarely the final answer. Effective thinking requires curiosity. Unfortunately, many organizations stop asking questions too early. They become satisfied with explanations that appear reasonable rather than explanations that are complete. World-class problem solvers remain patient. They continue investigating until they understand how the system created the outcome. This requires critical thinking. Critical thinking is not simply analyzing information. It is the discipline of examining assumptions, testing evidence, and resisting easy conclusions. When a problem appears, our instincts often seek someone to blame. Who made the mistake? Who forgot the instruction? Who failed to notice the issue? Japanese business philosophy encourages a more constructive perspective. Instead of asking who, ask what. What process failed? What assumption proved incorrect? What condition allowed the mistake to occur? This shift from blame to understanding changes organizational behavior profoundly. People become more willing to report problems because they know the objective is learning rather than punishment. Information flows more freely. Solutions become more effective. Critical thinking also demands careful observation. Many decisions are based on assumptions formed far from where the work actually occurs. Japanese leaders have long recognized the importance of seeing reality firsthand. Rather than relying exclusively on reports, summaries, or second-hand explanations, they observe processes directly. They ask questions, they gather evidence, they compare expectation with reality. Accurate decisions require accurate understanding. No amount of analysis can compensate for incorrect information. Observation, therefore, becomes the foundation of intelligent decision-making. Another important lesson concerns complexity. When organizations encounter difficult challenges, they often search for complicated solutions. More rules, more meetings, more technology, more procedures. Japanese philosophy frequently moves in the opposite direction. It asks whether unnecessary complexity is contributing to the problem. Can the process be simplified? Can communication become clearer? Can responsibilities be defined more precisely? Simple systems are easier to understand, easier to improve, and less likely to produce avoidable mistakes. Simplicity is not the absence of sophistication. It is the result of thoughtful design. Strong problem-solving also depends upon disciplined decision-making. Every decision involves uncertainty. Perfect information rarely exists. Waiting indefinitely for complete certainty often creates greater problems than making a thoughtful decision with incomplete knowledge. Japanese organizations balance careful analysis with timely action. They gather evidence, seek multiple perspectives, understand root causes, then act decisively. Equally important, they continue observing the results. A decision is not viewed as the end of thinking. It marks the beginning of learning. If outcomes differ from expectations, new information is incorporated, processes improve, future decisions become stronger. This continuous learning cycle explains why many Japanese organizations improve steadily over long periods. Every challenge becomes a source of knowledge. Every mistake becomes an opportunity to strengthen the system. Every solved problem increases organizational capability. Over time, this accumulation of learning becomes a powerful competitive advantage. These principles apply far beyond business. A student struggling academically should examine study methods rather than simply spending more hours reading. A leader facing declining team performance should investigate communication, expectations, and systems before criticizing individuals. Someone trying to improve personal finances should identify the habits creating unnecessary spending instead of focusing only on monthly budgets. In every area of life, lasting improvement begins by understanding causes rather than reacting to consequences. As you encounter challenges in your own work and life, resist the temptation to accept the first explanation that comes to mind. Pause. Observe carefully. Ask why. Then ask why again. Look beneath the obvious. Search for patterns instead of isolated incidents. Question assumptions. Follow evidence rather than emotion. Most importantly, remember that every problem carries hidden information. Those who simply remove the symptom solve today's difficulty. Those who discover the root cause prevent tomorrow's. That is the mindset of a world-class problem solver. It is not defined by having immediate answers. It is defined by asking better questions, thinking more deeply, and building solutions that endure long after the original problem has disappeared. In the end, the greatest competitive advantage is not avoiding problems altogether. It is developing the wisdom to transform every problem into an opportunity for continuous improvement. Chapter 11. The Habits of Exceptional Organizations. Why do some organizations continue thriving for decades, while others rise quickly, only to fade away? The answer is rarely found in a single product, one visionary leader, or one brilliant decision. Exceptional organizations are not built on isolated moments of success, they are built on habits. Just as individuals become the product of their daily routines, organizations become the product of their daily behaviors. Every meeting, every customer interaction, every decision, and every process either strengthens or weakens the culture over time. Japanese business philosophy recognizes that greatness is not achieved through occasional excellence. It is achieved through consistent excellence. That consistency begins with discipline. Many people associate discipline with rigid rules and strict control. In reality, discipline is simply the ability to do what is important, even when it is not exciting. World-class organizations understand this well. They inspect quality, even when production is running smoothly. They improve processes even when profits are strong. They invest in employee development, even when immediate financial returns are uncertain. They prepare for future challenges, while competitors celebrate today's achievements. Discipline allows organizations to remain committed to long-term principles instead of being distracted by short-term emotions. This naturally leads to the power of consistency. Customers return to organizations they can trust. Employees remain loyal to workplaces that are predictable and fair. Business partners strengthen relationships with companies that reliably honor their commitments. Trust is not created through one extraordinary experience. It grows through thousands of dependable interactions, every product delivered on time, every promise fulfilled, every problem resolved honestly. These seemingly ordinary actions accumulate into an extraordinary reputation. Japanese companies have long understood that consistency is not boring, it is a competitive advantage. The same principle applies internally. When leaders behave consistently, employees know what to expect. Standards become clear. Decision-making becomes faster. Collaboration improves because uncertainty decreases. Consistency creates confidence, and confidence enables people to focus their energy on creating value rather than navigating confusion. Another defining habit of exceptional organizations is continuous learning. Success can become dangerous if it creates complacency. Many businesses fail not because they lack talent, but because they assumed yesterday's methods would remain effective forever. Japanese management philosophy rejects this mindset. Every achievement is treated as the beginning of the next improvement. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to learn. Every mistake becomes valuable information. Learning is not reserved for classrooms or annual training programs. It is woven into everyday work. Teams review completed projects. Employees share successful practices. Leaders seek feedback from every level of the organization. Knowledge flows across departments instead of remaining isolated. People ask not only what happened, but why it happened and how future performance can become even stronger. This culture of curiosity prevents organizations from standing still. It encourages experimentation without abandoning discipline. Closely connected to learning is adaptability. The business world never stops changing. Technological breakthroughs reshape industries. Customer expectations evolve. Economic conditions fluctuate. New competitors emerge from unexpected places. Organizations that refuse to adapt eventually become victims of their own success. Yet adaptability should not be confused with constantly changing direction. Japanese organizations demonstrate a more balanced approach. Their core principles remain remarkably stable: respect for people, quality, continuous improvement, long-term thinking. These values do not change. What changes are the methods used to express them. New technologies are adopted when they strengthen the mission. Processes are redesigned when better solutions emerge. Products evolve as customer needs evolve. The philosophy remains constant while the execution improves continuously. This balance between stability and flexibility allows organizations to innovate without losing their identity. Another powerful habit is the willingness to improve before necessity demands it. Many organizations only change after experiencing failure. Sales decline, customers leave, costs increase, competition intensifies. Only then does improvement become urgent. Exceptional organizations take the opposite approach. They improve while they are already succeeding. They search for weaknesses before competitors discover them. They strengthen systems before problems become visible. This proactive mindset creates resilience. Challenges become easier to manage because preparation has already begun. Exceptional organizations also understand that culture is reinforced through small daily actions rather than grand speeches. A leader who listens attentively sends a stronger message than a poster promoting teamwork. An employee who openly admits a mistake strengthens integrity more than a written policy on honesty. A team that shares knowledge freely demonstrates collaboration more effectively than any motivational presentation. Culture is shaped by behavior repeated consistently over time. Habits become expectations, expectations become standards, standards become identity. Over the years, this identity distinguishes exceptional organizations from ordinary ones. These principles apply equally to personal development. A healthy life is built through daily habits rather than occasional bursts of motivation. Financial security grows through disciplined decisions repeated over many years. Professional expertise develops through continuous practice and learning. Relationships deepen through consistent acts of trust and respect. The same habits that strengthen organizations also strengthen individuals. As you reflect on your own work, ask yourself an important question. What habits are shaping your future? Are they helping you become more disciplined, more curious, and more adaptable? Or are they quietly reinforcing complacency? The answer will determine far more than any single achievement. It will determine the direction of your growth over the years ahead. Japanese business philosophy reminds us that excellence is never the result of chance. It is the predictable outcome of habits practiced consistently, refined continuously, and sustained patiently. Exceptional organizations are not exceptional because they occasionally perform brilliantly. They are exceptional because their daily habits make excellence inevitable. That is the quiet power of discipline. That is the strength of consistency. And that is how ordinary actions, repeated over time, create extraordinary organizations that continue succeeding long after others have disappeared. Chapter 12. The Japanese Blueprint for Lasting Success. Throughout this audiobook, one message has appeared again and again. Extraordinary success is rarely the result of extraordinary moments. It is the result of extraordinary principles practiced with ordinary consistency. This is the enduring legacy of Japanese business philosophy. Its greatest contribution is not a collection of management techniques or manufacturing methods. It is a way of thinking, a philosophy that transforms how people lead, learn, improve, solve problems, and create value. Whether you manage a global organization, build a small business, lead a team, or simply seek to become the best version of yourself, these principles remain remarkably relevant. They have endured because they are rooted not in temporary trends, but in timeless truths about human progress. The first of those truths is Kaizen. Continuous improvement reminds us that meaningful change rarely happens all at once. Small improvements made consistently will almost always outperform occasional bursts of extraordinary effort. One better decision today, one clearer conversation tomorrow, one improved process next week, one stronger habit next month. Each action may seem insignificant on its own. Together they reshape careers, organizations, and lives. Progress is not measured by dramatic breakthroughs. It is measured by the commitment to become slightly better than yesterday. The second principle is lean thinking. Modern life constantly encourages us to do more. More meetings, more commitments, more information, more distractions. Lean thinking teaches a different lesson. Success is often created not by adding more, but by removing what no longer creates value. Eliminate unnecessary complexity, reduce wasted effort, protect your attention, focus on work that genuinely matters. When unnecessary activities disappear, your time, energy and creativity naturally move towards higher value contributions. The third principle is servant leadership. Leadership is not measured by authority, it is measured by influence. The strongest leaders create environments where other people grow. They coach instead of controlling. They listen before judging. They develop people instead of merely directing them. Whether you lead a business, a classroom, a family, or simply yourself, the objective remains the same. Leave people stronger because of your presence. The fourth principle is systems thinking. Many people spend their lives relying on motivation. Motivation is valuable, but it is unreliable. Some days it appears effortlessly. Other days it disappears completely. Systems continue working regardless of how motivated you feel. Daily routines, clear processes, consistent standards, thoughtful planning, reliable habits. These systems quietly produce results long after motivation has faded. The most successful people rarely depend upon willpower alone. They build environments that make good decisions easier and poor decisions less likely. The fifth principle is quality. Quality should never be treated as something added at the end. It begins with intention. Every email, every meeting, every product, every conversation, every decision, every habit, each represents an opportunity to produce work that reflects care, discipline, and professionalism. When quality becomes part of the process rather than an afterthought, excellence becomes consistent instead of occasional. The sixth principle is long-term vision. Modern culture often rewards immediate results. Japanese philosophy reminds us that the greatest achievements require patience, strong reputations, deep expertise, meaningful relationships, successful organizations, financial independence, personal character. None are built overnight. Each develops through years of thoughtful investment. Every worthwhile future is created by decisions made long before the rewards become visible. These principles are powerful individually. Their true strength emerges when they work together. Continuous improvement without long-term vision becomes directionless. Efficiency without respect for people becomes mechanical. Quality without learning eventually stagnates. Leadership without humility becomes control. Systems without purpose become bureaucracy. Each principle reinforces the others. Together, they create an approach to life that is resilient, balanced, and sustainable. This is why Japanese business philosophy continues influencing organizations across every industry. Technology changes, markets evolve, economic conditions fluctuate, yet organizations guided by these principles continue adapting because their foundation remains strong. The same is true for individuals. A person committed to learning will remain valuable even as industries transform. A leader who develops others will continue creating influence wherever they go. Someone who improves steadily, thinks long-term, and focuses on creating value will rarely be left behind by change. The world does not stand still, neither should we. Continuous improvement is not a destination, it is a lifelong practice. There will always be another skill to develop, another habit to strengthen, another process to refine, another lesson to learn. This should never feel discouraging. It is one of life's greatest opportunities. Every day offers another chance to become wiser than yesterday. As this audiobook comes to a close, remember that the principles you've explored were never intended to remain inside factories, boardrooms, or management textbooks. They belong wherever people seek meaningful progress. Apply Kaizen to your habits. Apply lean thinking to your priorities. Apply systems thinking to your routines. Apply servant leadership to your relationships. Build quality into your daily work. Protect your long-term vision, even when short-term distractions compete for your attention. If you practice these ideas consistently, success will become more than an achievement. It will become a natural consequence of the way you think and the way you live. That is the true blueprint Japan offers the world. Not simply a better way to build companies, but a better way to build character, a better way to build organizations, a better way to build communities. And ultimately, a better way to build a life defined not by occasional victories, but by continuous growth, purposeful leadership, and lasting excellence. Because the greatest legacy you can create is not measured by what you accomplish in a single moment. It is measured by the systems you build, the people you develop, the value you create, and the commitment to keep improving for the rest of your life. The journey through Japanese business philosophy reveals a powerful truth. Lasting excellence is never created by chance. It is built deliberately, patiently, and consistently through the choices we make every day. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored principles that transformed a nation facing extraordinary adversity into one of the world's most respected economic powers. Yet the true value of these ideas extends far beyond factories, boardrooms, or multinational corporations. They offer a practical philosophy for anyone who wants to build something meaningful and enduring. The transformation begins with a change in mindset. Instead of searching for shortcuts, embrace continuous improvement. Instead of accepting chaos, build disciplined systems that create consistent results. Instead of relying solely on individual effort, develop people, processes, and cultures that enable everyone to succeed together. Replace waste with value by focusing your time, energy, and resources on what truly matters. Resist the temptation of short-term rewards when they compromise long-term success. And move beyond simply managing tasks to becoming the kind of leader who develops others, encourages learning, and creates environments where excellence becomes a shared responsibility. These shifts may appear gradual, but they are profoundly transformative. Small improvements accumulate. Strong systems strengthen over time. Trust deepens through consistent actions. Organizations become more resilient. Individuals become wiser, more disciplined, and more capable of navigating an ever-changing world. Perhaps this is Japan's greatest lesson. Its most significant contribution to business is not a single product, revolutionary technology, or globally recognized company. It is a philosophy. A philosophy that demonstrates lasting excellence is built through humility, discipline, continuous improvement, and genuine respect for people. These principles remain just as relevant today as they were when they helped transform Japan into one of the world's most admired economies. Whether you lead a global organization, build a growing business, manage a small team, or simply seek to improve your own life, they provide a timeless framework for meaningful success. The future will continue to bring new technologies, new markets, and new challenges, but organizations and individuals who commit to learning continuously, improving steadily, creating value, and thinking beyond the present will always possess a lasting advantage. Because in the end, true success is not measured by how quickly you rise. It is measured by how consistently you grow, how many people you help along the way, and the legacy of excellence you leave behind.